target is calling Republicans bluff. Former special counsel Jack Smith says he'll comply with GOP demands to testify before Congress, but only if the hearing is made public. Oversight committee leaders have yet to say if they'll take him up on that offer. And in yet another possible prosecution, this time against Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, MSNBC's Ken Delanian and Carol Leonnig report that the Trump Justice Department's case has stalled. A federal prosecutor overseeing the probe recently told senior officials that despite months of investigation, she does not believe the case against Schiff is strong enough to move forward. President Trump, unsurprisingly, is not taking the news well. Here's what he said about Senator Schiff earlier this week.
Adam Schiff is one of the lowest forms of scum I've ever dealt with in politics. He's a horrible human being, very dishonest person. I have no idea what's going on. You tell me that he's going to be indicted. I don't know. You could ask Pam. I don't know if she could say it. Probably you are allowed to say it, but I wouldn't know about that. I can only tell you he's a very bad, I think he's actually a sick person. Do you want to talk about that?
We're not going to comment on any grand jury that's open. We can't legally.
I don't know. By the way, I hope it's true.
Joining us now is Georgetown law professor, MSNBC legal analyst, and former federal prosecutor Paul Butler, and managing editor for The Bulwark and MSNBC contributor Sam Stein. Okay, Paul. Paul. Now, poor Pam. I mean, can you just please explain to the wonderful people who are awake with us right now why what we just saw the President of the United States do and say is, one, highly unusual, and two, could become a problem in legal proceedings down the road?
So it's against the law to disclose grand jury material to anybody outside of the grand jury, including the President of the United States, which is what the President asked the Attorney General to do. Now, normally she hops to whatever he tells her to do, but this time it was too much even for her because she could get locked up for that. She could get sanctioned by the bar for that. And again, we know from when Trump was trying to slide into her DMs with that Truth Social post when he accidentally broadcast it to the world.
Because that's what, I mean,
7:05 in the morning.
Well,
just want to get a little private message. Right.
Right, that order. You got to go after Comey and Letitia James and everybody else who I don't like. So that was a mistake. But we don't know the other times that he doesn't make that mistake and he sends her orders. So who knows? Maybe he does actually know. He acted like he knew that there's a grand jury proceeding going on. He's not even supposed to know that.
I'm not a lawyer, so take this for what it's worth. But it did seem like the Bolton case was a lot stronger for obvious reasons. One is they actually did the investigative work. It had originated in the Biden administration. There was questions about whether he had taken classified information and disseminated it in an unlawful manner. And there's a seriousness to the indictment, right, in a way that just has not been presented with the other cases here. And, you know, maybe this is a good question for Paul, but it does confound me that we have multiple instances now where career prosecutors are saying, privately at least, but then it's leaking out publicly, we do not think there's enough material here to support an indictment, to give it the fulsome body of work, so to speak.
I needed to find a different way
I appreciate it. I just
to describe it other than the 26-page indictment, which we all have heard.
And yet, and I'm assuming the defense will get around to pointing to this, but the first line of defense has been, no, Lindsay Halligan is not actually constitutionally appropriate in that position to bring this indictment forward. But if it does get forward, I do wonder if the defense will say, we have contemporaneous reports that career prosecutors looked into this and said, no, there's not a case here, and yet you went ahead with it anyway. Can you explain that? And that strikes me, at least optically, to be really damaging to the administration's cases against these figures.
Sam, I'm going to keep talking about the woeful inexperience of Lindsay Halligan and talk about her not necessarily sliding into the DMs.
But she did slide into the DMs.
But let's put this up because so Paul, you brought up her prosecutorial inexperience. Now let's show everyone her inexperience with dealing with reporters.
Yeah.
Which you should be doing anyway. But
Right.
anyway,
Well, no, that's the whole part. That's the whole point of this. Okay, so so here it is. Lindsay Halligan here in the subhead of this. This is from Lawfare, published on Monday. My signal exchange with the interim U.S. attorney about the Letitia James grand jury. Okay, at 4:10 p.m., she texted me that she being Lindsay Halligan, me being Anna Bauer. By the way, everything I ever sent you is off the record. Anna Bauer responded, I'm sorry, but that's not how this works. You don't get to say that in retrospect. Halligan was unpersuaded. This is Halligan. Yes, I do. Off record. It's obvious the whole combo is off record. There's disappearing messages, and it's on Signal. It's off the record. You do not get to, do what's it called when you were a kid?
Retroactive.
Well, not that's the grown-up way.
Take-backs.
You don't get take-backs on stuff like that.
Well, especially with someone who's a complete stranger who you've never had any sort of interaction or pre-existing relationship.
Right. So a couple points here. One, whoever is watching, don't listen to Eugene. You can signal reporters anytime. Two,
I concur.
Very true.
Two, if you do signal reporters and you want it to be off the record, you need to establish the rules up front that this is off the record.
Right.
And then when you have an agreement, because the reporter has to agree to those terms, you don't just dive into it, then you can talk off record. You cannot retroactively say this was all off record. Three, well, there's 4 points. Three, the best part of the story, I thought, I mean, there was a lot of stupidity in that, and she shouldn't have done it, and it's going to hurt her, obviously, in the court. But the best part was when the DOJ official gave the statement about it and misspelled Lindsay Halligan's first name, which I thought was, you got to get the first name right beyond the record statement. 4 is, this isn't even the worst signal mishap of this administration involving a journalist. So let's keep that in mind.
But Paul, isn't it problematic, though, that Lindsay Halligan was potentially disclosing grand jury matters, confidential grand jury matters to a reporter?
It's not just problematic, it's a crime. She could get locked up for that.
About retribution. We have never seen retribution like this before. And I think our initial understandings of it was that it was a tit-for-tat kind of thing, that Donald Trump wanted to put his enemies behind bars. And I think what we're seeing as retribution plays out is that that is an element of it, and that is a possibility, and that is probably the most significant thing. But there are these other things that come with it. There are additional types of scrutiny. There's an additional type of shaming. It's what these charges do to the individual and how they weigh them down that I think that we didn't totally have an understanding of until we were able to see it in the way that we have. Because we know what it's like for someone to be under investigation, for them to be charged and go to trial. That has gone on in American history for decades. But we have never seen retribution like this. So what are the byproducts of it? What are the other things that come with it? And that's what we're trying to say, is that it's more than just Donald Trump trying to put his enemies behind bars.
That the headlines and the legal fees and their reputational impact, which is very hard to manage for a lot of these people, even though a lot of them are fighting back, is part of the goal. One of the things I've been curious about, and you've, I know, done a lot of reporting on this too, is there are a lot of lawyers. It's not just Lindsay Halligan, obviously. I mean, she's moving forward against the recommendations of everybody in her office, but who are watching this happen, this sort of shame game of sorts, shaming targets rather than having strong legal cases. When you talk to people who are still working in the Justice Department and in these departments, how do they feel about this strategy that's happening? People who are still there, who have been there for a long time.
Well, I think if you take someone like Eric Siebert as an example, Eric Siebert knew that the cases weren't strong enough. And he knew that there were ethical guidelines that said that if you didn't think the case was strong enough, you couldn't bring it. And you can't bring a case because you're there to name and shame and embarrass someone and tarnish them. You can only bring it if you think you can win at trial and if you think you can win upon appeal. And that's why Eric Siebert told Justice Department officials that he didn't think that there was a case to be made. He was someone who was a Trump U.S. attorney as full and through as he could be. He really wanted to be there, and if he could have indicted this case, he would have. But ethically, he thought that there was a problem where this is not about naming and shaming. It's not about embarrassing. It's about proving beyond a reasonable doubt and then having that case survive an appeal. And he didn't think that that was there. And that's why he provided the counsel that he did. And that's why he was fired.
Yet there's still people who are, I mean, they're in this tough position, I guess is my point, right? A lot of these Justice Department lawyers, people who are seeing this strategy be implemented. Do you think there's going to be more of a mass exodus of people if this continues, I guess, from some of these U.S. attorneys' offices?
Well, I think the thing that we don't totally understand or appreciate is how diminished the department is. How much has it really been hollowed out? How many people have truly left? What do those numbers look like? And who is still there? I think that in any sort of situation, you can probably find someone to bring a case, but does that mean it's an experienced prosecutor that is going to be able to face up against these high-powered white-collar defense lawyers who are lining up to defend Letitia James and James Comey? In that sense, there's a huge advantage for the defense in the fact that there's only so many prosecutors, folks in the department.
Trump's biggest problem is that he's built a world where only loyalty matters, not skill, not experience, not competence. And now he's stuck with the consequences of that choice. The kind of people he once could attract, seasoned advisors, experienced legal minds, policy professionals, even generals, they don't want to go through that again. They saw what happened during his first term. Anyone who dared to think for themselves, show independence, or even slightly disagree ended up humiliated, fired, or thrown under the bus. Some became scapegoats, others found themselves facing criminal exposure, and the rest just quietly walked away. So now, the only ones left lining up to work for him are the loyalists, people who are willing to echo whatever he says, no matter how reckless. But those folks, for the most part, aren't exactly the best and brightest. They don't get chosen because they're the most capable. They get chosen because they're obedient. They don't challenge him, they don't question him, and that's exactly what he wants until it all falls apart. And when it does, Trump lashes out. He blames them for failing him, for making him look bad, for not doing their jobs right. But here's the truth. They were never hired to do the job right. They were hired to agree with him, to nod along, to make him feel in control. You can't surround yourself with yes men and then complain that no one's fixing your mistakes. Because if we're honest, a real conservative president, someone like Romney, for instance, would at least have a roster of people with actual experience, even if their policies were terrible. They'd still know how to run things. Trump doesn't want that. He doesn't want competence. He wants control. And when control fails him, he points fingers everywhere but himself. But this time, there's no one left to blame. He picked them, he empowered them, he created this system where being a puppet is the only way to survive near him. And now, when the puppets can't perform, he's furious. But the truth is, he got exactly what he wanted, people who serve him, not the country. So no, he doesn't get to demand a refund. He built this mess, and he's the one who's going to have to live with it.